Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon again. This is the second edition of our bi-monthly webinar this year alone. Through this series of our CIDEL bi-monthly seminar, we bring in renowned experts, leaders, pace setters within the area of digital construction, as well as sustainable built environment in general. For those who attended our previous edition, you remember that we brought in a leader within the area of digital twin in construction and the built environment. So in this edition, we have the honor of bringing in who I will refer to as leader of leaders in this area, and that is in the person of Sam Stacey. So Sam is a graduate from University of Cambridge. He is currently at the CEO of Stacey X International, which is a consultancy company, as the chief executive. Many of us will also be aware of the digital transforming construction challenge, which was led by Sam between 2018 and 2022. This is a UKRI-wide initiative, a challenge through which the UK government spends uh, about 170 million in research and development grants that was awarded to various organizations to transform the construction industry. This was also matched with another 250 million pounds by the industry. So we have the honor of having the speaker who led this transformation in the global construction industry. I'm not just going to say in the UK, because UK is a pace setter for many other countries. And what we started here has taken another shape in other countries, and it has led to transformation of construction industry. We used to say, or we still say, that construction industry is one of the least digitalized. And I think with the transforming construction agenda, which was led by Sam, things has changed significantly over the years, and many things have been done within the construction industry. So today, Sam will be sharing insight into this groundbreaking initiative and how it was delivered, how it is going to be influencing the landscape within the construction industry currently, presently, as well as the future opportunity that are here with the transforming construction agenda. So I'll be handing over to Sam to lead us in the discussion this afternoon. If you have any question, please put it in the chat. My colleague Liz is going to be monitoring the chat, and she'll be reading out your question later on in the process after Sam might have finished his talk on this. So Sam, over to you. Thank you very much again for joining us this afternoon. We are here to learn from your wealth of experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Saeed, and welcome everybody. Good afternoon. So Saeed's given a good introduction to the work that I've been doing, and I'm going to take you through it in these steps. So talk about the background with regards to the construction industry, what we did with the Transforming Construction Challenge, Transforming Construction UK, a reference to the sort of new model to encompass how we think about the built environment. Then my thoughts about the implementation of that new model and the routes and mechanisms by which we will continue this change and transformation of the construction sector. And then finally, a few comments on where the breakthroughs are going to come, what the opportunities are, and where we might see breakthroughs in terms of a change in the industry. So where we are today is a recognition that there are major issues to address with regards to the construction sector. Built environment emits up to 40% of carbon emissions, so this is quite rightly very much on people's minds at the moment, and you know, this is driving policy, it's driving business investment, it's driving I think the attitudes of particularly younger generations. Structural fragmentation in the industry has been a big problem, so a very adversarial environment within construction, main contractors not having the best relationship with their subcontractors, and lots of layers of subcontracting through the industry. Low productivity, sort of famously, studies have shown that in other industries, particularly manufacturing, we've seen steady growth of productivity over the last few decades. So that the output per man hour has increased massively over the last few decades. Construction seems to have more or less not moved for several decades, and yet there is enormous opportunity, as I'll explain, to improve productivity in construction. Labour shortages. So on the one hand, not enough people are coming into the construction sector, so for jobs in construction. So you've got an aging workforce, and we have this situation where not only do we have to keep building at a steady pace of new buildings, buildings, infrastructure, all these things, but the requirement to decarbonize the existing building stock is rising up the agenda. The energy performance of the existing buildings is not good enough, lots of carbon emissions, and that's going to require extra labor as well. Low project predictability. So the industry has been plagued by problems with budget and timing. HS2 has got a lot of headlines around this, sadly. I would say the press probably make it even worse than it is. I mean, Crossrail, for example, has been a very successful, very impressive UK project, and now I think millions of people are riding the Crossrail trains very happily, but the press gave it a lot of trouble around being somewhat over budget and over program. And quality issues have been a problem with the industry. I've got this evocative picture of the Grenfell Tower here, which is extreme end of the spectrum, let's say, or a tragic example. But the way that the industry has traditionally operated, I'm afraid, has given rise to a lot of quality problems, and that's something that we need to address. But I think that we need to think about what the vision for the future is, and be confident that these things are achievable. These components of the vision are achievable. So this is my work. This is my view of where we need to go with the construction industry, and I think we've made a lot of progress with regards to that journey. So an industry that wastes no time, energy, or materials in delivering beautiful and sustainable buildings. An industry where business relationships are long-term and collaborative, where the value to clients, value in all respects to clients and building users, is the driver of all our decisions, where we harness the latest manufacturing techniques to assemble precision components in factory environments. So very much including offsite manufacture as part of the vision, where new technologies such as sensor-based control systems, IoT, if you will, enables ease of building operation, and where those who work in the industry have safe jobs in which they feel proud to be addressing the fundamental challenges of our time. And when I say fundamental challenges, particularly the environmental challenges, but also quality of life and so on from the built environment. So my work over the last few years, so very specifically with regards to leading the Transforming Construction Challenge, but also with my work as Innovation Director at Skanska, has led to the conclusions that there is enormous potential to improve the performance of the industry. Quality can be much more rigorously managed and delivered, again, particularly with regards to offsite fabrication. Energy savings, we can reduce the amount of money we need to spend on running buildings, on powering buildings, and in the process reduce the carbon emissions associated with the built environment. Material savings, we can also reduce the amount of physical waste that is produced by the industry and the over design associated with buildings. And in terms of labour saving, huge opportunities for doing more with less, with fewer man hours. So just to go into a little bit more detail on this, it's the manufacturing approach that really is going to shift the dial in terms of quality in construction. You know, it's sad to say, as someone who's worked in the construction industry all my career, all my life, the level of defects, snagging, and all that we see in construction is on a completely different scale to what we see in, say, you know, the manufacture of cars or electronics and so forth. With regards to the energy performance of buildings, traditionally, I guess we haven't focused that closely over the you know, previous times over the energy performance of buildings. We have techniques now that can massively improve the energy performance, reduce the amount of energy that buildings use, and incorporate techniques to generate our own energy as part of buildings. So solar panels, photovoltaics, heat pumps, and so forth. 75% is probably a good average figure, but in many cases, I think buildings can actually be a net contributor to the energy system of certainly the UK. Material savings. Right now, last statistics I saw, we are carting away 100 skips of waste for every £1 million that we spend on a building project. So a vast amount of waste comes away from construction sites. And the way that buildings are designed today as one-off entities, as essentially bespoke products, tends to mean that we over-design a lot of elements in the building, structurally in particular. And shifting to this more standardized manufacturing approach will reduce the materials that we need to use in buildings. Possibly also worth saying at this point, we can also shift to lower embodied carbon approaches for buildings, so increasing the use of timber in construction, taking a better approach to the concrete and that we use in buildings, so lower carbon concrete, and labour savings. So again, when you're working on site, it's very difficult to do much in terms of improving productivity of labour. Once you're in a factory environment, my experience has been at the very basic level, if you shift construction activities into a factory environment, you'll double productivity. You'll get twice as much output out of every person hour worked. Then you start to introduce lean techniques, automation. You can go, you know, 4 times as productive. I've seen statistics where off-site fabrication has achieved 10 times the productivity levels of on-site construction. And I think this is going to be absolutely necessary to the future of the industry. So we had the Transforming Construction Challenge as part of the industrial strategy for the UK. So the brief history here is we had the Brexit vote. There was a view that we needed to give attention to the performance of UK industry. There was an overall industrial strategy, and different industrial sectors lobbied for support from the government. And we were successful with regards to getting a sector deal for construction, a pot of money to work with, 170 million to invest in driving this forward, in developing new techniques. 250 million was committed by the industry as match funding to this programme, and I'm pleased to say that the industry more than delivered on its side of the bargain. So at the last count, I think the industry had contributed about 400 million in match funding to these techniques. It was a 4-year funding program, so four-year program. 2018, as Sahid mentioned, 2018 to 2022, but with the idea that the program would embed long-term change within the industry. And I would say at this stage, it absolutely has done that. Nonetheless, I would definitely advise and advocate for a follow-on program, so a kind of transforming construction part 2. I think the return on investment, the benefits to society, the benefits in terms of cost saving for the government when they're procuring schools, hospitals and so forth would absolutely justify a second phase of the Transforming Construction Challenge. And what I'm hearing from sort of politicians at the moment is there's a good chance that we're going to see that. Obviously, all the polls are showing that we're likely to get a Labour government next, and I think industrial strategy is definitely being talked about by the opposition in government at the moment. So with the Transforming Construction Challenge, we sought to lay the foundations for radical change within the industry. Get away from this idea that value equals the cheapest possible buildings and come up with a much more balanced approach to recognizing the value of built assets, whether that's government buildings, as in schools and hospitals and so forth, or private sector buildings. And defining the platform approach, so providing the tools and the theory to apply modern methods of construction, off-site fabrication, standardization across the industry, and develop a really substantial portfolio of platform or standardized methods for the industry, very much leaning towards the digital, using the efficiencies of digital techniques, and we've currently published 96 case studies covering the whole project life cycle, covering all types of buildings from homes right the way through to, you know, linear infrastructure, tunnels and railway lines and so forth. And using the levers of a shift in public procurement. So the government currently is responsible for about 40% of spend on new buildings. So therefore, if the government procures things differently, then it will drive change through the industry, and giving that confidence to the supply chain is very important. So just to say a little bit more about these sort of key foundations, these key approaches. So one of the key outputs was the value toolkit, a series of integrated activities supported by tools, resources and guidance to drive better outcomes from each investment in the built environment. So produced value refers to the financial dimension, and that, you know, relates not just to the capital cost of building the building, but designing and delivering a building which is going to be cost effective to run. So thinking in terms of the whole life cycle cost of the building. Then also thinking about the contribution and the relevance of the environment with regards to buildings, the air pollution, effect on climate, water, land use, biodiversity, all these things. And what we're doing here is providing, not telling clients how to prioritize these things, but providing a toolkit to enable them to make informed decisions about how much they want to prioritize these different factors. Social factors too, in terms of local employment, equality and diversity, and the techniques that we pioneered with regards to the industry are very, very conducive to better equality and diversity in the industry. More off-site fabrication provides better working conditions, more digital techniques opens up the possibility of more diversity in the workforce. To a large extent, building things in factories or constructing things in factories reduces the amount of travel that people have to, workers in the industry have to undertake. And also thinking about the human dimension, valuable skills, healthy environments to work in, and secure employment. So all these things now being considered by the government when they're procuring buildings. So very much uptake by the public sector, but also I'm seeing a lot of evidence of these considerations being applied in the private sector as well. The product platform approach. So this is this slide refers to the product platform approach to buildings, very much taking inspiration from, say, the automotive sector, standardizing the kit of parts for buildings as much as possible, and thinking in terms of being able to optimize all the parts of a building in such a way that different suppliers can provide, whatever it is, the different elements, the floor plates, the cladding, the structural elements, and so forth. But standardizing the interfaces between these elements. So trying as much as possible to have open systems to maximize competition and innovation with regards to the different parts of buildings, but standardizing the interfaces so that it all fits together. So imagine a box of Lego where the supply chain is free to come up with the best possible pieces of Lego, but always knowing that those pieces are going to fit with other pieces. And as I mentioned, we've got 96 published case studies covering all types of buildings, covering all parts of the building life cycle. Lots of digital techniques, lots of techniques that contribute to the sustainability of buildings in there. So just a couple of examples of this. Active building technology was a big part of the program. So demonstrating to everybody how to make best use of the technology that already exists in terms of sustainability of buildings, the different types of solar panels, the heat pumps, ground source and air source heat pumps, battery storage of power within buildings, other forms of energy storage, and testing it out in a number of case studies for buildings. So that I think has given confidence to all stakeholders within the industry that a real step change in the performance of buildings in environmental terms is possible. And we piloted and demonstrated the product platform approach to buildings in many different ways. Lots of housing projects using this approach, and this is an example of a big office block in South London that used this approach and achieved some great results in terms of improvements against benchmark projects in the industry. While saying also that this is, relatively speaking, a prototype of these techniques. So to have achieved these gains with, as it were, the first iteration of this approach, I think is particularly impressive, and I'm particularly proud of that. So that brings us to where do we go from here? As I say, that program, Transforming Construction, completed in 2022. And we all need to think about the future. We're a couple of years on from that now. So green optimization of existing buildings is a massive challenge. As you see here, up to 400 million buildings across the UK, EU and US will need to have their energy performance upgraded by 2050. That represents a vast amount of work and therefore a vast amount of business opportunity. Addressing the skills shortage, construction demand can only be met by attracting new talent and radical productivity gains. So I've said a little bit about how we seek to achieve the productivity gains. I think the whole shift in the construction sector towards more digital techniques, the sort of things I've talked about, the attention to sustainability, ought at least to provide the situation where we're going to attract more people into the industry for well-paid jobs and meaningful jobs where people feel that they're contributing to creating a better world for us all. Profitable new business models. So transforming construction did lead to enhanced profits for many firms, but I think if I'm honest, we didn't see that much in the way of real headline grabbing shifts in shareholder returns and profitability. So lots of small to medium sized companies demonstrated very good success as part of transforming construction. I wouldn't say that we've seen positive results in terms of the big companies in the sector, but not sort of orders of magnitude change in profitability, which I do believe is ultimately feasible. And like any change program, any change initiative, leadership is vitally important. Strategic leadership and governance is going to be required in order to drive success in the future in the industry. And what's, I suppose, from my perspective, more complicated than maybe other sectors is it really does need to sort of join up these different stakeholder groups, the academic world, the universities and such like, government policy, the big businesses, the small businesses, all these different different factors. These are all sort of indicated by this little icon I've got on this slide here. So just going back to the model that I mentioned, this I think is a nice graphic that sort of encapsulates all these principles. And Buckminster Fuller, a great pioneering engineer from the US in the 20th century, is a big hero of mine. You never change things by fighting existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So the new model that we've piloted, that we've tested for the industry is this one. Define value, as I've shown with the previous slide. Agree the rules and the objectives for the building in question or the building program in question. Create the kit of parts, or take a kit of parts approach to the building or collection of buildings. Configure those kits of parts, and that can be done with digital tools. Provide joined up information. This is where the golden thread of information that many will have heard of, and the audit trail for buildings comes in. And make best use of digital models and digital twins right the way through the project life cycle, right from initiation stage to the ongoing management and running of the building. And provide confidence to the market and investors with public procurement. And as I say, I've seen a lot of positive signs with regards to private sector procurement as well within the industry. So this is where it gets a little bit speculative in terms of implementation. I think a new collection of stakeholders will be necessary to drive these sorts of changes in the built environment. In terms of economics and governance, and addressing the affordability of the changes to the industry, business cases and system implication, system integration is necessary for each building or intervention. So really kind of bringing the economic expertise to the fore with regards to the way that we deliver buildings. I'm chairman of, alongside my role with Stacks International, I'm chairman of a newish business called Sustain CRE, Sustain Commercial Real Estate, looking at specifically economic optimization of green transition of buildings. Energy management. I think energy management for buildings will become much more important and much more integrated with the way we design and deliver and operate buildings. So energy services enabling time of use billing and storage, so that's storage of energy management. So the likes of Octopus Energy getting into that space, and certainly they've been quite proactive in terms of that. In terms of customer interface and logistics, this is all about convenience, really. You know, it's a truism that customer satisfaction with regards to the building industry has not been great. So I think we're going to see platforms from which to order products and services and facilitation of the movement of goods in and delivery of goods with regards to construction, and then with regards to building trade skills. So this is where quality and assurance and efficiency comes in, and I see a pivot towards this. We see quite a lot of good signs with regards to the traditional building contractors. Waits is an example here. Mace, Langer, Rourke, Morgan Sindall, you know, many are changing gradually in this space. So that's how I see the sort of different stakeholder groups coming together to support the change in construction. And it's also worth thinking in terms of the different market segments. So, you know, different types of clients are going to have different needs. And I've grouped it here into three: homeowners and build-to-rent landlords. So they will have their own particular set of requirements for what they need from the construction industry. Building occupiers to business occupiers too, so office buildings, retail, all that sort of thing. And I think a really interesting opportunity to drive change in the sector is the academic estates, by which I mean the buildings owned by universities. So that's a picture of part of the UCL estate, incidentally, on my slide there. And then getting close to the end of my slides here, in terms of how we deliver these sorts of changes, I think it's interesting to see it through the lens of different levels of intervention. So basic green upgrades, fairly easy to achieve with buildings, simple to fit and focused on sustainability. So smart thermostats, lighting, smart meters, thermal electrical batteries and infrared heaters, all of which are quite easy to supply and fit, certainly according to, you know, within that model that I had earlier, stakeholder groups. Advanced green, so a little bit more complex in terms of supply and fit, products requiring more complex insulation, but also sustainability focused. So heat pumps, solar panels, cladding with improved performance, so insulation and such like, and better insulation for buildings. Full upgrades of buildings, so more substantial upgrades, kind of overall facelifts for buildings, new kitchens and bathrooms and this sort of thing, very much drawing on the off-site fabrication supply side with regards to this. And then, you know, ultimately, and, you know, we are seeing, despite all the press about quite high profile failures in the modular or factory built building domain, we are seeing overall a steady increase in the amount of buildings that are constructed in factories. So that's how I see the business landscape shaping up over the next few years and decades. The change will be driven to a large extent by the preparedness of people to invest in new techniques and invest in businesses that are driving this change. But this is really to demonstrate that there is enormous economic opportunity in with regards to all this. Building contractors are typically made very low margins. So the top 10 constructors you see here, it's a couple of years ago I did this analysis, but the market cap came to 125 billion for the top 10 global construction companies against a revenue of 228 billion. Tesla, massive obviously disruptor in the automotive sector, has achieved a significantly bigger market cap than all those top 10 constructors put together against a much smaller revenue. So, you know, this is really just to show that if we get the formula right, if businesses get the formula right, if the industry gets the formula right, the commercial opportunities are really spectacular. And I hope that it'll be the UK that wins the race in terms of implementing these techniques and really benefiting from these opportunities. There are pros and cons in terms of strengths and weaknesses in all sorts of different areas. Enormous amount of enormous building boom going on in the Middle East, which gives rise to opportunities to take a lead with regards to these things. USA is always, you know, very entrepreneurial and you know, never to be underestimated in terms of entrepreneurial capacity, and many other regions too have the opportunity to change. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions and get into discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. I hope everyone has enjoyed the discussion as much as I do. This was a groundbreaking initiative that was led by Sam, and it has made significant change in our construction industry. So without wasting much of our time, I'm sure people will have a lot of questions to ask. I will hand over to Liz, who will be able to lead us on the question and answer. I should be reading out the question for you to be able to answer. Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have had a few questions, but obviously if things come to mind as we're going through them, we will please put them in the chat and we'll take as many as we can, really. So I'm just going to start with the first question from Bernard, who asked, Sam mentioned that the 25% savings on materials include modular systems. If you are to consider the modular supply chain, whilst the savings might be positive in construction, how was waste accounted for in the modular firms?
Oh, well, the answer is most of the waste can be designed out when a modular approach is taken. So you know exactly how much of material you're going to need to order. You can be much more systematic about how you cut the materials to avoid wastage. And within a factory environment, it's often possible to recycle or reuse offcuts in a way that simply wouldn't be possible on site. So I hope that mainly answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next one, which is, considering there has been an increase in AI awareness in the industry, criticisms of MMC and financial challenges in the sector, if you were to lead another similar challenge, what do you think will be different?
I think in terms of the technologies that we've got available to do things better, we've demonstrated and developed a lot of those technologies a lot over the last 6 years. So, we start from the 2018 when we initiated the program. The techniques have come on a lot since then. My personal view is that we need very much a business value focus with regards to driving further change. I think we demonstrated and developed a lot of techniques through transforming construction, and I think the government procurement, the construction playbook that was produced on the back of transforming construction has been very good for the supply chain. But I think encouraging and providing the environment for disruptive innovators in the sector, ultimately leading to greater profits, will be a key thing. So I would favour more of a sort of venture capital or equity-based approach to driving change in the industry. I would say we've done the heavy lifting in terms of proving that new approaches have the potential to do better, but in terms of really scaling it and getting massive uptake for the changes, it's going to need to be a business-based approach. That's
great, thank you. The next question is from Tom. Hi, Tom. Thanks for joining us. How many of the test projects have resulted in fundamental business change in the participants? For instance, have Landsec changed the scope of their future developments? We did a lot of work in looking into this. So we hired a company called Frontier Economics to look at what had happened across all the participants in the program, and there were certainly more than 100, I think maybe closer to 200 businesses. So that was an independent assessment of the impact on the businesses, and the results were very positive. So the results did show that the uptake of the techniques was very widespread. I think I'm right in saying that the £25 billion worth of projects had adopted the techniques, and the net effect, so the effect on the performance of both the businesses and the built assets, was found to be very positive. So yes, it really did result in business change. There's no limit to how much business change one might aspire to, and I think that anything that can be done to maintain and perhaps increase that momentum would be a good thing. The next one I was going to ask is, the construction industry is very competitive, with every organisation always trying to outsmart the others in contract award. One of the key practices we witnessed was construction businesses aiming to use the product from research and development for competitive advantage rather than making it available to other organisations. How does the challenge ensure that best practices are shared across organisations?
The simple answer to that is a condition of the funding was that a lot of information was made public, with regards to what was developed. It is always necessary to strike a balance, because while we help support these development of these techniques with government money, also the companies in question put in some of their own money. My impression is that the level of openness and sharing was pretty good, and I've always encouraged businesses that I dealt with to be very open in terms of sharing their knowledge, not just because that's kind of a good thing, but because really the ability to deliver products and processes is, in my experience, as important as the sort of secret IP related to those products and processes. So the business has to be configured to be able to deliver those things, and I've seen very little downside to openness and sharing of information from these projects is that I would say the businesses that are more open tend to get more benefit, ultimately business benefit, from the work that they've done and the government supported work that they've done.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think that's something we all come across quite often. So the next question for Sam: is there any end of life cycle arrangement for modular building?
This is starting to end of life cycle is starting to get more attention, and I would say it's relatively early days at the moment. I don't think it's something that's had a lot of attention in the industry historically. I think, again, this is probably an area that deserves more focus going forward. The demolition audits are starting to become more prevalent in the industry. So more of an analysis of if a building is going to be demolished or taken apart, the more analysis of how much of that building could be reused. As a company I'm working with called Material Index that is specializing in that, both in terms of understanding what can be done with a building at the end of life and providing a sales platform for selling parts of buildings. So it's early days, but it's increasingly being recognized as an important topic. And I think it's probably also true to say that with modular buildings, because the amount of thought and care that can go into the design is relatively increased, i.e., you think very carefully about design for manufacture and assembly, and you can then think about design for deconstruction. You think about it, with the expectation that many buildings are going to be constructed to a particular formula. I think this will get more attention in the future.
The next question is from Sam. The retail sector and partly the banking sectors are examples of industries where companies that have adopted new business models are the winners. In the retail sector, those that haven't changed have collapsed. Do you see the same happening in the construction industry in the medium term?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. I think it's inevitable. I think it's been, frankly, pretty easy to get complacent in the construction sector over the last few decades because we haven't seen that rapid change. As you see from the presentation I've just given, I'm convinced that change is coming. I've articulated how I think that change is going to manifest itself, and that will mean that some companies become radically better at satisfying customers than the existing companies in the construction industry, and therefore companies that don't change will suffer very much. They will collapse. So yeah, I think that's part of the equation. And overall, I don't see that as a bad thing, in the sense that I think the benefits for both us as citizens will be substantial. We'll get a better built environment that we're happier to live in and is better in terms of sustainability. And I think the net benefits and opportunities in business terms will be highly positive, as I showed in my penultimate slide there, in terms of the commercial opportunities.
So the next question is more about education and training. So it's from Robin, and he asks, to what extent would better education and training at site level improve productivity and reduce the performance gap?
Yeah, I have the possibly unpopular view here that we should very much focus on education and training in the new skill sets that are going to be required for the industry of the future. So that's where I think that's what really matters. Clearly, the level of skill of the people in traditional trades is always going to make a difference, and quite frankly, I don't think we're going to be putting bricklayers and plumbers and carpenters out of work anytime soon. I think there's going to be more than enough work to go around. But in terms of the change that I really want to help drive, it's with regards to the new techniques rather than sort of site level skills.
Next question from Tom. Can construction frameworks be used as a vehicle to further bring about change to the industry?
Absolutely. I think certainly the government has a responsibility to use the levers that it's got to drive change. So frameworks for building schools, hospitals, prisons, all that sort of thing. And I think inevitably we're going to see more influence from frameworks in the private sector too. Possibly worth commenting there that developing and implementing, managing frameworks requires, again, a new set of skills or a different set of skills, and the government needs to put enough resource and attention into that, without naming any names of organizations and so forth, departments. My perception is that the ability, the resources to develop and implement frameworks are insufficient at the moment in terms of government, and they're missing an opportunity there.
We have Tom again. Thanks for all the questions. If modular and manufacturing is such a no-brainer, why are so many modular builders failing? Do these companies just have unworkable business models, or is a modular future just a pipe dream?
Yeah, totally reasonable question. And the number one answer to that question is with modular construction, you're always in danger of being caught out by high overheads. So on the one hand, the advice is always to do whatever you can to minimize your fixed overheads, so don't invest too much in automation, certainly in the early stages, and give a lot of attention to control of pipeline to make sure that you've always got close to maximum utilization, full utilization of your resources. So I think it's probably true to say that just about all the failures, and we have unfortunately seen a lot of failures in this space, just about all the failures in this space are due to those two factors: too much investment in production and fluctuating demand, such that there are periods when your factory's not being fully utilized, and nonetheless you're still carrying the cost of all that investment in production capability.
I'm just going to jump back to the chat because I think there's been a new one in there. Question from Lee: isn't the comparison to Tesla productivity somewhat inappropriate and an oversell of construction reality, even considering the new technologies mentioned?
Actually, I don't think it's that unreasonable. The construction companies are valued on the basis of very low profit margins. Everyone will be aware that if you achieve a 3% profit margin, you're doing really well. You're certainly in the top quartile of performance. They're also valued on the perceived risk around business performance. So a company may have a 3% profit margin this year, but the market's going to price their shares on the basis that they might not achieve that in subsequent years. So price to earnings ratio of in construction tends to be quite low. On the basis of the analysis I've done and the analysis I've talked about, if we see substantial gains in all those areas I talked about, in energy performance, in materials, in productivity and so forth, the opportunity to make a step change, possibly an order of magnitude, would probably be not unreasonable. I would say 10 to 20% profit margins have got to be possible with regards to the industry, and that would radically improve the valuations of construction companies. So yeah, I don't think we'll see quite the same ratio. My ratios there, whatever it was sort of 500 billion in terms of market cap against a 40 billion odd revenue. I think, you know, we might not see quite that with regards to construction, but I think we can expect to see radical improvements in performance of some businesses in the industry.
Great, thank you. So the next question is from Anderson, and there's two bits to this, so I'll just read it out for you fully. Thank you, Sam, for your informative presentation. During your webinar, you mentioned the absence of attention-grabbing news regarding profitability boosts arising from the 2018 to 2022 initiative. Could this have a negative impact on construction industry buy-in? In your opinion, do you believe that there are compelling use cases demonstrating that these initiatives are indeed enhancing the financial performance of construction organisations?
It's an interesting question. I mean, it's generally not in the interest of businesses to shout too much about their profits, and certainly, you know, if you're a modular constructor, for example, I think it would be distinctly unwise to trumpet how profitable you are, because, you know, your customers are going to be demanding discounts and so forth. So it's not really if we're going to hear about it, it's not going to be so much the companies themselves that are going to publicize their successes. It's going to be the press that publicize the successes. I think probably mostly the stories haven't been eye-catching enough to make the national press, and, you know, that's regrettable, let's say. You know, in terms of the big plays, the big pushes into, say, modular construction, I'd love to have seen some stories hitting the national press. I mean, I think from the point of view of government can probably do more. There are opportunities for the government to drive change by demonstrating and publicising the business benefits associated with these techniques.
So the next question is about the golden thread. I wondered when it would show up. Regarding the recent introduction of the golden thread, do you believe the construction industry is adequately prepared for its implementation? And what do you think could be done to facilitate its implementation?
Is it adequately prepared? Almost certainly not. It's not something that I've really looked into in detail. But, you know, our industry is, as was mentioned at the beginning, famously slow to adopt digital techniques, and this is all about digital techniques. I think the wider benefits, quite apart from the, you know, very important safety issues around the golden thread, but the wider benefits are also quite substantial. And so I think, again, it comes back to a push to police the uptake and drive the uptake, which ultimately is going to route back to government.
Can you share briefly how your company was able to navigate operations during Brexit and COVID with these achievements?
COVID, Brexit, not so much. I mean, one of the effects of Brexit was to reduce the restrict the free movement of labour. So labour shortages have become more acute in the industry, and that would tend to be a driver for the modern methods that I've been talking about. In terms of COVID, there was a quote I've referred to from time to time by Mark Reynolds, Chief Executive of Mace, when asked about the effect of COVID on his businesses, and his response was, where he's been using modern methods of construction, the effect of COVID was very minimal. So again, in ordered factory-based environments, it's much easier to manage all these kind of shocks. So again, another reason to use these modern methods.
Okay, I'm conscious it's just gone too, so do we want to wrap it up there, or?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Liz. So, and thank you very much to Sam as well. So I will bring in my colleague, Adi, who is our course director for construction management, to give a vote of thank and then end it. But before then, I would like to read out one of the posts that Tom put in about the Hateful 10, which is another event that is being organized here for people that would like to attend. Is about the Hateful 10 things that are affecting modern method of construction. So the link to book to attend the event is there. So if you would like to attend, please register and attend the event. It's promising to be interesting event, just like this one as well. Yeah, thank you very much. Hadi, over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Sam, for a very insightful and thought-provoking presentation. I think it was an excellent opportunity for all of us to hear from you. I would like to personally thank you for all you've done and all you're doing currently in terms of improving the construction industry. I would also like to thank the CIDEL, the whole group, especially Fahid, for facilitating these presentations, which are very much needed for a better collaboration between academia and industry. And I would like to thank all the audience, please, for the patience with us for the last 1 hour and for the very good questions. This is just to remind you that the next bi-monthly presentation will be in May, and you will all be informed of that one. But again, on the last note, thank you very much, Sam, for an excellent presentation, and it was great to have you on board. Thank you very much, everyone.
Real pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.